1957, and Aintree is the site for the British Grand Prix. This year, also the Grand Prix d'Europe, and the organisation is by the BARC, who always put on a grand parade of drivers before the race. World champion Fangio, leader of the Maserati team. Bera, his teammate, and third man, Harry Schell. The Ferrari team. The unconcern and good humour of Mike Hawthorne and Peter Collins contrast the solemnity of their Italian teammate Luigi Musso and the debonair Maurice Trintignant. Great white hopes of Britain, the Van Wall and Stirling Moss, but still suffering from sinus trouble. Van Wall and Tony Brooks, but still suffering from his Le Mans crash. The Van Wall and Lewis Evans, new boy to the team. Off they go to show themselves to the crowds all round the course, led by Fangio. An exuberant Hawthorne is followed by his Le Mans co-star Ivor Bueb, who obviously likes being chauffeur-driven. Salvadori in thoughtful mood, perhaps wondering how his little Cooper will cope against the bigger stuff. So they wind their way around, disporting themselves like film stars, whilst back at the pits, their backroom boys work hard to make sure their performance doesn't turn into a bad second feature. The Grand Prix circus has been on the move. Rouen, Reims and Aintree in 3 weeks. There's too little time for preparation, and even less time for rest between events. And the Ferrari and Maserati boys have to cope with their sports cars as well. Drivers' wives find something to distract their minds in these last nerve-wracking minutes. Even Mesdames Fangio and Bera. Bera's car has its plugs changed. Their campaign is planned by Ugolini. What's he saying? Get out ahead of the Van Walls and break them up. Well, there's a lot of wishful thinking about, and quite a few people who should know better are saying, 1, 2, 3, Van Wall, old man, that's what it'll be. Perhaps no one is quite so optimistic about the 2 BRMs entered, but fresh from his good run with the Jaguar at Monza, Jack Fairman can be relied on to do his best. Now it's round to the starting grid, and Moss, number 18, fastest practicer, beating his own Mercedes lap record by 0.02 of a second, is first to the grid. Next to him, Bera, number 4, equaling the old record, and third in the front line, the Brooks Van Wall, number 20. Number 10, Hawthorne, fastest of the Ferraris, shares the second row with an unfit Fangio, and the Lewis Evans Van Wall shares the third row with Collins and Schell. One minute to go. Most engines have been started and everyone is cleared off the track. Flag is up and they're still pushing the Gerard Cooper. Waterways corner, and it's Bera, Moss, Hawthorne. Round anchor crossing and down Sefton Straight, and Moss forces his way past Bera into the lead. The BRM twitches its tail as they head for country and Beechers. By Beechers, Moss is leading by 25 yards from Bera, Maserati. Then it's Hawthorne Ferrari, Brooks Van Wall, and Collins Ferrari. Down Railway Straight, and Brooks flashes past Hawthorne. And as they go through the difficult right-hander at Tats, Moss, in the Van Wall, leads the Grand Prix for Britain. From Bera, Brooks, Hawthorne, Collins, Schell, Musso, and Fangio lying in 8th place. There's no doubt that Moss is increasing his lead over Bera. But behind them, Hawthorne is not content to stay behind Brooks, and he takes him just as they go into Cottage Corner. Along Railway Straight, Brooks is past Hawthorne again. And Fangio, moving up slightly, is still lying back in 6th place. Well, if the Maserati plan is to take the lead with Bera's car, then Sterling is certainly doing his best to upset it. He's pulling away by nearly a second a lap. Moss, Bera, and there goes Brooks in 3rd place with Mike still trying all he knows to get by. And once again, coming to Cottage, Mike slips through on the inside. And Bera is a little wild as he tries to hang on to Sterling. Again, after the straight, Brooks, number 20, is ahead of Mike, but his leg hurt at Le Mans is tiring him. It's not long before Brooks has to give best to Hawthorne, who, once past this time, quickly draws away and sets out after second man Bera. And so, after half an hour, a British car is leading a Grand Prix against all that the Italians can do. Moss in number 18 Van Wall is 7.5 seconds ahead of Jean Bera in number 4 Maserati, who now has Hawthorne in number 10 Ferrari on his neck. Brooks is passed by Collins and Musso, but now behind these appears Lewis Evans on the 3rd Van Wall. And so, as the race reaches 20 laps, Moss is 8 seconds in the lead, and apparently well able to keep Bera at bay, who in his turn is staving off the challenges of the Ferrari. And then a bombshell. As Moss goes past the pits, he gives them a signal, and it's clear that all is not well. So, with Moss faltering and Brooks tiring, the Van Wall colours remain to be carried by new boy Lewis Evans. Lap 22. Moss makes a hurried stop at his pits. And there goes Bera and Hawthorne to snatch away his lead. Moss's mechanics find a loose lead, and Lewis Evans passes into 3rd place in a last-ditch stand for Van Wall's. Moss is out again after 35 seconds, but whether they've cured the trouble remains to be seen. Bera in the Maserati is now firmly in the lead, and British hopes, still now so high, are once again cast down in despair. And indeed, after one more lap, Van Wall is in again, confirming our worst fears. It's no good. When a Grand Prix car starts visiting its pits in the first hour of a race, you can pretty well write it off as the ultimate winner. But Van Wall's are not finished yet. And as Tony Brooks goes past, the signal is out for him to come in and hand over to Sterling. And as Brooks pulls across at Tats to get to his pit, Musso, on number 14 Ferrari, goes past him to take 5th place. Brooks comes to rest. Sterling is ready to leap in, but Brooks can't leap out. Tired and sore, he has to be helped gingerly from the cockpit. Then in a flash, Moss is off. No longer leading, but in 9th place, with a long, hard road of over 60 laps ahead of him. And Brooks climbs wearily back into Moss's sick car to see if he can motor it to the finish. It's not often that Fangio is out of the picture in a Grand Prix, but today he's driving as though neither he nor his car is fit. And it's not long before Sterling, going faster and faster, passes him into 6th place and gets after Musso on Ferrari number 14 on his long haul back to the top. Increasing his speed lap by lap, he moves up through the field. But Bera, way out in the lead, also goes faster and pulls away from second man Hawthorne. Now Shell is in trouble again and pulls across Mike Hawthorne to go to the pits. A dangerous manoeuvre, to put it mildly. He's been plagued by overheating, and he's in for good this time with a broken water pump. Les Leston brings in his BRM, looking hard at the rear end, although officially he retires with engine trouble. Just 7 minutes before his teammate, Fairman. And now, one feels almost thankfully, Fangio brings in his Maserati with a broken rocker. He's had an unhappy race today and hasn't shown himself as the Fangio we all know and admire as the greatest driver in the world. Only a week later, he was to show his real brilliance again at Nürburgring, beating all opposition with the utmost ease. The Lewis Evans Van Wall, still in third place, is catching Hawthorn. Moss is after Lewis Evans and sets up a new lap record of over 90 miles an hour, the first man to lap in under 2 minutes. Peter Collins is in with a burst water connection, but the liquid that's coming out seems to be the funniest kind of water I've seen, and I'm not the only one, apparently. Anyway, whatever it is, another Italian car bites the dust. Brooks, too, has brought the ex-Moss Van Wall in to retire it with a broken fuel pump. The leader, Beyer, number 4 Maserati, is ahead of Hawthorn by 20 seconds at this stage, and try as he may, Mike cannot cut down on this gap. But in the Van Wall pit, they know that both Lewis Evans and Sterling Moss are catching up on Mike at a speed which will take them into second and third places behind Beyer. Lewis Evans. Moss. Round Beechers goes Hawthorn. Lewis Evans. Moss. Round they go, with the distance between them diminishing all the time. Well ahead of this scrap, Beyer goes on his winning way. Moss is gaining on him, but there are less than 25 laps left. Beyer's pit is not unduly alarmed, and it's going to be a hard battle for Moss to catch him in time. But for Hawthorn, it's a different story. Both Van Walls are closing fast, and it can't be long before they both go past him. Back in the pits they wait. Will it be on this lap? And then, sensation. The Van Walls flash past in first and second places, without a sign of the leader Beyer or Mike Hawthorn, and back at Tats, the unhappy Maserati limps in. It's race finished. And now Mike, hat off, comes creeping through Tats to round off this fantastic chain of events which altered the entire fortune of the race in one flash. Certain of serious rear suspension trouble, he drives gingerly to his pit, past the forlorn Beyer Maserati. But mechanics find that the trouble is only a flat rear tyre, punctured by the bits of Beyer's clutch, which had disintegrated on the track. And Mike hurriedly puts his helmet on again, and the boys make a very rapid wheel change. Whilst waiting, Mike has time to order one of those refreshing soft drinks we know all these men love, and naturally he returns the empty to Sterling's pit, before rejoining the race in 4th place. But for poor Beyer, there was no easy way back into the race. Would he have won, or would Sterling have made up the leeway? Well, that's a question we shall never be able to answer, as they push the last of the ill-fated Maserati team into the dead park. Now, it's the two Van Walls which can circulate gently over 7 seconds a lap slower than before the Maserati-Ferrari disaster. Moss, followed by Lewis Evans, number 22, is over a minute and a half ahead of the third man, Luigi Musso on 14 Ferrari, who has been driving a steady, if unspectacular race, ready to move up after the inevitable retirements. Behind him, in 4th place, Hawthorn is really motoring again, trying to catch Musso, who was 30 seconds ahead of him. And in 5th place is Salvadori's little 2-litre Cooper, a really good drive, and ahead of Trantino in number 16 Ferrari, who pulls over to let Mike go through at Tats. Now Van Walls are 1 and 2, with just over half an hour of racing left, when Sterling starts looking over his shoulder for Stuart Lewis Evans. But he's disappeared, and Moss goes past the pits alone. Once again, the race has altered its character, and the unexpectedly steady Musso gets a free move up into the big money. Suddenly, Moss frightens the highly excited crowd as he calls at his pit. But it's just a precaution as he takes on 10 gallons of fuel and is off again after only 17 seconds. Still well out of reach of Musso. And here comes the missing Lewis Evans, minus his bonnet. The throttle linkage has come adrift, and for over 15 minutes he's battled out on the circuit to make a temporary repair. Officials push him off again, and he motors gently to his pit. They seem to approve the job he's done and send him off to finish the race. And so the final laps are reeled off with Moss a comfortable leader in the van wall, followed by the Ferraris of Musso, Hawthorne, and Trintignant let into fourth place after Salvadori burst his gearbox. Back at the finish, the flag is ready, and Stirling takes it to herald the first all-British triumph in a Grand Épreuve since Seagrave in 1924. Congratulations to Tony Vandervelde, whose enthusiasm and money has made this victory possible after so many heartbreaks and near misses which would have deterred lesser men. Congratulations to Stirling Moss for choosing to throw in his lot with the Van Walls this year and helping to make 1957 one of the brightest years that Britain has had in motorsport for many a day. And as the tired and begrimed Stirling comes up with Tony Brooks to receive his trophy, we leave him to the tender mercy of the photographers and go back a number of years, when we first met Stirling without such a vast crowd of admirers. Those were the days when the young man had proved himself outstanding in the latest form of motor racing, 500s. But there were many who looked on this as only some kind of circus racing, and were openly scathing when lofty England let him try his hand in a Jaguar. But he took to the XK120 with nonchalant ease, and soon produced, in even the skeptics' hearts, a feeling that at last we might have a real champion in the making. He showed us, in those early post-war days, the conception of cornering by four-wheel drift. The late John Heath was one of the first who saw Moss's potential worth and gave him a taste of bigger things with a place in the HWM team. Now the foreigners were after him, but ever hopeful of something good and British coming along, Moss jogged along unhappily, first with his own Cooper Alta, and then with the G-Type ERA. But with not even a prospect of a real British challenger appearing, Moss at last was forced to avoid professional suicide by joining the foreign camp. He got his own Maserati, and then took a place in the official team. Then to the place with Mercedes, which was to bring him to a position where everyone could appreciate his outstanding virtuosity. Dundrod, the Mille Miglia, and the Grand Prix all fell to him, and the magnificent car he was provided with. And now at last, he finds himself driving a British car again, this time successfully. Let us hope that in 1958, the Van Wall will bring him yet further victories, crowning his past successes with the greatest prize of all, Champion of the World.